So today we are joined by Elizabeth, and I am so excited, Elizabeth, for you to be here with us today. We're going to be having a meaningful dialogue around what it means to use strategy to pivot and manage change, and how does that connect to fundraising and marketing for nonprofits, especially during this time where there's a lot of change happening, I think, for all of us. So, Elizabeth, you could certainly start by telling us a little bit about yourself, but I want to say I think you have such a meaningful voice, and I love that not only are you in the weeds in multiple organizations and so forth, but also that you've been at this for a while. And I think I even saw a picture of you and Michelle Obama, or at least a cutout of Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your journey.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be on here because when you had your first series, I waited. I mean, there are a lot of webinars out there now, but I was waiting every morning for years. I felt that they were really a level above, and was thrilled that you actually wanted me to be a speaker. So how did I get to a cutout of
Yeah, how
Michelle
did you get to
Obama?
a cutout of Michelle Obama?
Yeah, so it was strategy. It was pure strategy. I was at that time working for a public library in a very impoverished community with low literacy levels and very large immigrant population that our school district numbers told us was 70%, even though our census numbers said it was 50. And through several rounds of strategic planning that put us more in touch with that community's needs that aligned with our mission and our change of focus and service. And as a public library, to start fundraising to support those new and unique services. We won the what we call the IMLS, and that's the Institute for Museum and Library Services National Medal. Wow. That is given annually to the 5 top libraries and 5 top museums in the country. So working within the constraints of a limited budget, and this is during the recession and impacted negatively and laying staff off, and trying to raise our level of service at the same time. Strategy is what made that possible. Now, why is there a picture of me with the cutout? I'm still pissy about. I led the team that built the programs. I led the strategic planning, and IMLS had a policy that a community member representative of those services would be allowed to stand on stage with Michelle, the executive director, and the board president. And I was like, wait, what? You do all the work and you don't get to. So I am literally 2 rows from the White House, and I almost didn't get in.
Oh no!
Yeah, they had me off with Secret Service on the side, and I'm like panicking and I'm complaining. And this woman looks at me and goes, "You're upset that you're not in there because they let you in first to get your hugs and stuff, Michelle." And I said, "Yeah, I did the work." And this woman goes, "So you think you should be in there?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I'm the head of IMLS." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't care. I already won." So that's why my picture is only with the cutout. But I have plenty of photos in the red room, green room, east room, the dining room, because Michelle Obama did do this. But it was very meaningful because we were in Illinois and she was from Illinois. And our library was the last one because it was alphabetical. And it's an amazing room. So the reporters are still there, and they are on ladders so that they can all
Oh
get a
yeah, so they
shot.
can get it all in the picture. Yeah.
Right. So this is like full on press, and you can hear the shutters going. And I almost knocked down the head of the Library of Congress in his walker because I wanted to be closer. And when she got to our story, there's like a voice of God who's illustrating the story. And the story that was illustrated for us was that a woman who was a recent immigrant was able to save her family's life by calling 911, because
Wow.
we considered literacy
Yeah.
whatever you needed to know to be a good citizen.
Hmm.
And so we taught that calling 911 would not put you in danger with your immigration status,
Hmm.
and why and when you should call. So she called because her children had lit a pile of leaves on fire
Oh
and
wow.
saved her
Yeah.
family's life. And this story is going on like the voice of God, and Michelle Obama is just sobbing.
Wow.
And I'm sobbing, we're all sobbing. So it was a really powerful moment in my career.
Hmm.
And, I would say it really was, a peak of that part of my career.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
I say we got there because of strategy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, Elizabeth, you talk about in some of your writing this idea of, as a nonprofit, especially if you're focused on raising money, the need to reflect what your community locally is actually asking for. Unpack that a little bit for us as it
Yes.
pertains to that effort.
Yes. So there's so often, I feel like I would love to give a presentation once on having a 501c3 does not make you a nonprofit.
Hmm.
And a nonprofit is a business,
Mm-hmm.
but there's another level of care and compassion,
Mm-hmm.
usually for your service,
Mm-hmm.
a mission, a strong mission.
Hmm.
And often we can be mission driven, but we can assume that we are right in our mission, in our purpose, and how we carry it out because we are the experts.
Hmm.
And we sometimes forget to check in with those we are serving to indeed find out if this is a service they want or need.
Yeah.
Is this the way we deliver it? Is it in a way that they need it?
Yeah. We get so busy making the cupcakes that we forget to
Yeah,
ask the crowd if they
we
actually.
love the cupcakes, right? They're
Yeah.
so delicious.
Hmm.
Oops, everybody's gluten free. So, like I said, my first experience with this was in a public library in a low income community
Hmm.
with low literacy rates. And when I was in charge of fundraising, programming, volunteers, strategic planning, marketing, all these channels except the books.
Wow. Just a few hacks.
And yeah, just a few. And my job was to get the community to the library and
Yeah.
then hand them over. So I challenged my fellow assistant director one day, how are you spending the library budget?
Hmm.
If we take Maslow's hierarchy of needs and we overlay income to levels,
Mm-hmm.
right? So everybody who makes under this income will assume they're in this level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you spending on the self-actualized, which was always the smallest? Largest budget, bestsellers, right?
Wow.
So if they can't read them, why are we spending our money this way?
Hmm.
You know, uh, so it was eye opening for all of us, and for us to also learn how to reach the Latino or the Hispanic market, depending on where at that time, which label we used,
Mm-hmm.
because we were next door to the courthouse. We were across the street from the police station, and we asked for IDs. So
Wow.
right there, we put so many barriers up to service,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. So when I talk about strategic planning and cycles, I the one that started us really was the most powerful was one we called good to great.
Yeah.
And we took the concepts of good to great and we spent 3 years making sure we had the right people on the bus. We had the right policies. We had the right procedures. We had the right services. We were spending our money appropriately. And we were addressing difficult issues. That took 3 years.
It's such a long time, but doing something that's so important. Talk to me a little bit about what disconnect you see between strategic planning like that, which, as you mentioned, it kind of requires you to slow down and to be intentional and to really dig deep. What sort of disconnect do you see between that and marketers on the front lines? Because I know that there's a balancing act there. How does that tension?
Yes. So I think for marketers, it's understanding their community. And so what I would always recommend is that you take an environmental scan of your community. And you don't just look at your own data of who you serve and what their general population, demographics are, but their psychographics. And then if you're serving like within a community, are you looking at the school district's data? Are you looking at United Way's data? Are you looking at the city's plans? Because then there's in this example, it's a city. What are all the other agencies working towards? You don't want to have a replication of service, and you want to have a true understanding of the people you serve. And this is where we could go deep into census numbers, deep into ACT numbers, deep into kindergarten readiness, and learn that, wow, who we serve, it's much deeper than we originally believed. But most recently, I worked with a symphony, and we surveyed their audience and found out that 60% of their audience, and we had a great response rate, were women with master's degrees over the age of 65.
Wow. Which completely changes the way
how you market.
Things. Yeah. So we're forgetting, I think, as you're kind of pointing out here, to actually collect data sometimes as marketers on our target audience. Talk to us a little bit too about, so that's the before story of data, and we can use that, I think, to inform our decision making around our communication strategy. What about when we're talking to donors? Do you feel like donors are getting savvier with the sort of data when it comes to impact that they expect to see? And if so, how does that play out on the site?
Great question, because that data should lead to better services, which leads to better marketing, which leads to marketing the story and the impact. Right? Because donors don't really want data. Very sophisticated donors do.
The 1%ers, perhaps.
Which you'll get your biggest gift from. So there's that. But for the rest of your donors, it isn't the data, it's the story. And I had a great example of that. I had the head of the business development for the county. I asked him to come tour our library, and he goes, wearing a navy blue blazer and khakis, and he's like, why do I have to come to a library? I know what a library does. And I said, okay, but I'd love you to give you a tour. And we gave him a tour focused on story and impact. We ended that tour sitting at tables in the children's department. And he said, I didn't realize the public library was my greatest asset in economic development. That I will not be successful in drawing industry to this county until the workforce is educated, and I didn't realize the public library was educating the workforce.
He was associating the public library with perhaps its mission from 30 years ago, but wasn't up to speed on the need in a community where
Yes.
access to technology is a huge issue, and the library is solving that.
Yes, right. Yeah. And then we hadn't been solving that before. We were solving it now because of the result of community surveys, environmental scan, you know, and then changing services to reflect the need, and then constantly doing those as pilots and measuring the pilot success, and using often grants or donations to fund those pilots, and then letting those donors or grantors know the impact it made. Constantly checking in, telling them a story of what might have happened that day. Like, I just want to call you and tell you what just happened.
Yeah. Really making it personal. So there's that story of impact that you're telling to the donors. When it comes to these pilots and some of the new services that you're offering, as you look at your community and reflect back to them, oh, hey, we think you actually are saying you need A, B, C, and D, and we're not giving you those. So you run this pilot. How do you communicate via marketing channels?
I am so glad you're asking that, because sometimes I'll see a beautiful strategic plan, which to me is more of an outline than 700 action items that the staff gets overwhelmed with. It's a direction, it's an intention. And then I'll look at their marketing, and they're marketing something else. They're telling different stories on social media. They're telling the stories that the marketing team is used to telling. The website is still service oriented rather than story oriented.
Yeah.
Right? So every time you do shift strategy, I believe there needs to be a marketing plan to support that and a fundraising plan to support that.
So they don't live in silos, although sometimes I think we're guilty of letting them. When it comes to that lower socioeconomic group that you're mentioning there with the library that needs these technology tools, how do I communicate via digital channels?
You don't. That's my other great aha. It's word of mouth. In that case, and this was prior to the Affordable Care Act, I was looking at models of ambassadorship. And that in the Latino community it was called promotoras. And I'm not telling the story. I'm a white Anglo-Saxon woman who doesn't speak Spanish. I can plan a strategy, but I need to have the trusted individual. So this is one thing I learned in a marketing class with the Latino community, that you were better, and I'm sorry if I use Latino. I'm going to make sure that everyone knows that I am sensitive to that. We were told it would be far better for us to hire a trusted person from the community than bring in somebody who just happens to be Latino. That we would save 3 years on building trust. So I found that woman at the church, and the church had 3,000 parishioners who trusted her.
Wow. So really the modern day, phrase that might be used is often influencer marketing. And when we think influencer marketing, I don't know about you, but we tend to think of, Instagram and people with celebrities behind them. But in many ways, that's the original form of influencer marketing. You were finding an ambassador that already was invested in the community.
And then she found 10 more.
Oh, wow.
She would watch, in this case, she sat on the floor of the public library, not on the floor, well, that's what we called it, at the table. And she watched who came in for a week. And then if she saw people over and over, she would go up to them. She'd say, "What can I ask you why you use the library? Would you consider telling others? And so then we recruited a team of volunteers that we gave them t-shirts, we trained them, we gave them the materials, and they told their story. And then they would meet somebody at the door. And this is all based on navigators in the healthcare system. Right? Same idea, that you would meet them at the door. Because one day we found a man, and this is all library related, but it applies to any community. He walked out with all his books and he set off all the alarms, and he came in and he was confused. And he thought his library card was like a toll pass. That if he just had it in his pocket, it would work, because no one told him. They all assumed that he made it to the door. We gave him a card, so he should know what to do, because we gave him a handout.
Yeah, the best laid plans with really good intentions. You know, I think sometimes we forget that as marketers, that we have such varying audiences. And as you speak, I'm kind of thinking through from a digital perspective, or maybe just from a marketing perspective as a whole. Are there pieces of our marketing and communications plan that attach better to some parts of our strategic plan than others? And when it comes to the library, it almost feels like you've got the fundraiser market, where maybe they are very internet savvy, but then some of the community members that you're trying to serve are not internet savvy, don't have the same access, you need to take a different approach. How does that all connect back to the strategic plan?
Story. Because all of them value a story. So whether it's a story of their friend who was successful, so you should try this too, or a story of the impact your gift has made. Story is the key, and we often forget that. We often promote the service.
Yeah. We hit them over the head with our events and our you should come to this and you should come to that, but we don't always step back and tell them the story behind it all.
Right. So I think storytelling, like right now in development, I am calling every single donor, whether it's $25 or larger. As they give every month, I'm making a call. Often they don't answer, because we all screw up on calls. But I will get often a text back like, well, I did get your message, thank you. Or someone will return the call right away and go, oh, I'm sorry I didn't answer, because of course I'm having to use my cell phone in lockdown, and I understand that. But the idea is, I'm also telling them the story that where our staff now and what we're doing behind the scenes, and when we hope to reopen, and how much their gift matters to us as staff.
Yeah, to you personally.
To me personally, no matter what you gave, you remembered us. And that means so much to our morale.
You're making a really personal connection there. Sidebar, but I'm curious, do you see text messaging to be kind of an emerging tool when it comes to connecting with both those who give money and those who
only those who have indicated in advance that texting is the way. If we look at demographics of our donors, again, completely understanding our market, yes, people over a certain age text. Are they comfortable getting a text from you? Is the relationship there? So to me, these things are community, an environmental scan, community engagement. And I love the word engagement, because that implies a relationship that goes both ways. It is not outreach. If I am engaged to you, I am committed to you. Right. And I have to let you know that over and over again. So community engagement through ambassadors who are willing to share your story, tag them on social media. But if I have a relationship with the donor, then I knew they would take a text from me. But bottom line is, does your agency provide you a phone? Usually you're texting from your personal phone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. More than not. That's usually
yes,
the case. Yeah.
right. So that requires a deeper level of connection for
Hmm.
sure.
Hmm. Yeah, you're really giving away your personal information there when you're
Yeah.
texting them, but that also kind of emphasizes this sort of relationship you're suggesting we need to be creating. So we've created this approach where we're connecting our fundraising and our marketing strategy back to our strategic plan, and we're managing change that way. You're, I think, helping us really get a vision of what it means to make social impact more sustainable by actually considering what our audience wanted in the first place and what they needed. How do you see, because you've been there, you know, you've seen the MySpace era transition into the Facebook era, transition into the, into the Instagram and the Snapchat era. Now you're only a couple years older than I am, of course, but you've got that experience.
Oh yeah, my children used to carry pagers.
what what do you see changing with digital in the last 5 years that's been meaningful, as a nonprofit fund developer?
Again, digital storytelling. Right now, if your agency had to be closed during COVID, that first person back into your agency, you have to have a picture of them and get it
Yeah.
out. Right? That will send the strongest message that it's safe to attend
Hmm.
because they'll see somebody else take that action first.
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so from what I'm reading, it isn't, sending a list of your cleaning supplies.
Mm-hmm.
It's showing through action that people feel safe coming back out again.
Hmm. Hmm.
So how do you use um, photography and video to tell a story that you used to mostly use words for, right? A press
Yeah.
release. I used to fax press releases back in the day. Now there's no one to even send a press release to.
Yeah,
So
there's no newspapers left to send them to.
no, there's not. And so I had that challenge 25 years ago because of this low income community. No newspaper wanted to cover it.
Hmm.
So these are how I developed these strategies of community engagement and ambassadorship because I didn't have a newspaper. And I did find word of mouth and trust
Hmm.
would get me much further than a press release in the newspaper anyway. A deeper level engagement.
Hmm. Which really just took that extra step on your part to invest in and engage in a relationship, to use that word engage again. So you've been at this for a while, and you have a really strong vision, I think, for how to create actual social impact. What do you think we need to keep in mind specifically here in the next month or two as we move into the quote unquote new normal?
Right. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of calling these donors to check in on them.
Mm-hmm.
Not sometimes it's, like our higher level donors, we're
Mm-hmm.
calling to check on them. And
Mm-hmm.
some go, oh, I meant to get them. No, no,
Yeah.
don't.
And
You
how do
know,
you do that in a meaningful way where it doesn't sound, canned? What do you say on that phone call?
I say, hi, this is Elizabeth from the museum, and because now I'm working with a museum, and I am just calling to check in on you and your family.
Hmm.
You've been such a great supporter to us, and we want to make sure that you guys are okay,
Hmm.
because you're important to us
Mm-hmm.
and you're important to this institution. And when they say, oh, I meant to give, I say, no, that's not why I called. We
Hmm.
can talk about that some other time.
Hmm.
And then there's an even bigger level of trust. Those who gave recently, we're also using this as a chance to do a SWOT analysis, which
Hmm.
can lead to our next strategic plan. Um, if you have time, I'd love to ask you, what do you see are the greatest strengths of our organization? What do
Yeah.
you see as the weaknesses? What do you see as opportunities right now for us? And besides the virus, what are some threats to our organization moving forward?
Mhm.
And you can couch these in other ways than a SWOT. They're basically the same thing. What do we have right? What do we have wrong? What are we confused about? What could we do better?
Mhm.
What's the landscape? What the landscape in the community that we serve? What are others doing? These could be
Mhm.
donors that have their fingers in several pies. And you can use that all as gathering information for a strategic plan cycle that you might need a short-term shift in your strategic plan that is phased to be post-COVID, in
Mhm.
your marketing post-COVID, in your fundraising post-COVID. Right now, I'm going back and I am reassessing our entire fundraising plan for the rest of the year. What is it realistic? You know,
Mhm.
um, we can't count on just because we're open that plan will fall into place.
Yeah. So, what I love so much about what you're saying here today, Elizabeth, is this idea of, I think nonprofits sometimes are guilty, as are other organizations, of taking their mission and almost building walls around it. And it's easy for the mission to become driven from the inside out instead of from the outside in. And both what you talk about with reflecting what the community actually needs, I also hear you saying reflecting what those giving money to you are actually thinking about and what they actually want and where they see you going. You're
Yes.
really talking about a mission that's being driven from outside in instead of inside out. And I just think that that is so refreshing in an environment where it's tempting to just publish content 24/7 based on what I think
Right.
others need to hear. Um, so it's so wonderful to hear that perspective. I know you've talked about now being a time to double down on mission, on vision, on values and intentions. I would love today, as we wrap up, to ask you, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, for two things. One, issue a challenge, if you would, to all of the marketers and fund developers out there in the nonprofit space right now. Uh, Challenge us. What should we do in the next 2 weeks that maybe we're afraid to do? And then the second thing I'd love to hear from you is just what are some practical solutions to overcoming and addressing the challenge that you're going to issue? What are some tips?
Okay, so the challenge would be one that I think Sherry Quam Taylor, who happens to be a friend of mine, who you had on a few weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
she would tell you, have you talked to your top 30 donors?
Hmm.
So I would say, have you call your top 30 donors in the next 2 weeks if you have not called them in the
Hmm.
past
And
6
I
when
hear
you
you
had
say
plenty of
call,
time.
not email, right? Call.
Call.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do not email them.
Yeah.
You call them. And I challenge you not to ask for money, but ask for input.
Hmm.
To
Hmm.
say, this is a time for us to reassess our service, our mission model. I mean, if you're a public nonprofit, you
Mm-hmm.
may not be able to open again in the fall or the winter.
Yeah.
So how are you still relevant? And to me, our second strategic plan that moved us towards the White House was relevancy.
Hmm.
Were we still relevant? And if we weren't, now we were great. We had good policies, procedures, staff, but now were we relevant?
Yeah. You've got an amazing plan, but does it matter?
Yeah, right. Amazing team. We're ready to work. Does anyone care? And I challenge you to also add 10 donors who have fallen off and ask the same questions.
Hmm.
I'm not calling you for money. I'm calling for your input.
Hmm.
I noticed that you've stopped giving to our organization and I just need feedback.
Hmm. Hmm.
I imagine, wonder what they have to say. I've gotten an earful from some this past two
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah. But I
An
bet that info
earful.
was meaningful.
Oh my gosh. Even if it's one person, it opens your eyes to a problem you might not have seen
Yeah.
or something that you were not doing well. or sacred, what we used to call these sacred cows, that you're like, well, this is how we always fundraise. And this woman just went like with a sword. I'm like, oh, okay, that was a sacred cow.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And that of course helped you as you considered how to pivot, quote unquote.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. It's
Wow.
time to pivot.
Well, Elizabeth, I have so enjoyed today's dialogue. I think that it's just so important for marketers and fundraisers right now to think about how to connect strategy
and vision and mission.
Right.
Vision.
Right.
What is the vision? And if the vision has to pivot to accommodate a temporary post-COVID world and services or service delivery models, but your vision and mission are pure, are you telling them that? Are you showing them how you do that? Or you're like, yeah, sign up here, do this, give us money.
Yeah, give me $50 and click move on with your day. Yeah. Gosh. Well, I think that, we all have a lot to learn from your leadership, certainly far beyond your stories today. So do you have any sort of shameless plug or final thoughts before we go? Is there something we should go read or a website we should visit?
I have a website. It's called Inspiritus Leadership. Inspiritus meaning breathe spirit into, spirit, breathe, inspire. It's a word I came to when my granddaughter was born with cystic fibrosis.
Wow.
It means breathe. And it is my word. I love to breathe spirit into organizations with challenging budgets whose missions are clear, but their fundraising and marketing and strategy aren't all interwoven. Those are my favorite organizations to work with. So you can see a little bit more about me and Inspiritus Leadership on the website, and tells you a little bit more about my story and my passion for change and pivot and strategy and engagement and word of mouth.
I love it. Word of mouth is still alive.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That. Just because you have social media tools that you can track all day long doesn't mean that's what you should be doing.
Yeah. Just because you can spend all day on Facebook doesn't. Yep. Which is of course hard for me to hear, but news well received.
Is everybody on Facebook? Or are those just the grandmothers?
Yeah. Well, we so appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Continue Change. And Elizabeth, I hope that you have just a fantastic week.